And hello, everybody. My name is Smug,
And I'm Frost.
and today's episode is. I think it might be a little preemptive, but probably not, to say part one of maybe a two-part, three-part series.
If this gets to 3 parts, then we went completely overboard. But safe to say, definitely part 1 of 2. And we'll put a little asterisk on the 2 just in case it goes into 3. But if it goes into 3, then
We're
oh
cooked.
boy, then we took way too long on one of these videos. we went off the deep end.
Oh boy. Us? Wander
No,
off?
no, we would never.
We always stay on topic.
Yeah, it's
Isn't that right, editor?
I mean, I'm sure the editor loves hearing us ramble and cutting half the videos of just the content. He's even going to cut this part right now. The topic of today is toughness, and I don't know what you even call this video. If it's just toughness in underutilized scale, or if it's just toughness, the ebbs and flows of infantry versus vehicles from the conception of Warhammer back in the 1980s, because that's basically what this is about.
Yeah.
So
A history of toughness.
yeah, I mean, well, so this is going to be a long topic, because in order to get to where we're going, we must know how we got here to begin with.
Something history repeats itself.
Yeah, it's basically, in order to solve the problem that we haven't yet explained, we must know how it originated, and we got to get to the root cause, and that's what this video is about today.
Mm-hmm.
So, for everyone who started playing Warhammer this edition, the
10th.
toughness in 10th edition. So the toughness scale is from 1 to essentially like 14, because I think like Titans are 14. The Warlord Titan might be something like 16, but for functionality, you're never going to see those in an actual like competitive game. Like you might see like someone have like a Warhound or something. That's kind of fun.
The
But like
Warhound
that's
is T13.
yeah. So it's like the Stampa and the Monolith, right?
The
So
Warlord
functionally,
is 16.
God, like so functionally, the highest strength you're going to see, or sorry, highest toughness you're going to see, probably 12. You might see 13 if you're playing against like hypercrypt monoliths, right? And then basically you got most of your, like everyone knows the marine stuff, right? And I want to pose a question. Do you think it's a little weird how much tougher, or I guess, okay, if you were coming into 40K without any prior knowledge, right? Do you think that the balance, like, do you think the toughness scale is weird, or do you think it's imbalanced?
The second you get something that's strength 8, all infantry is done.
So that is also my opinion, but that's not the question. So, but as in, like, do you think infantry should be tougher? Like, should be tougher? I guess because like if you look at like the vehicles and even like the lighter vehicles, right? If you don't know anything about like 40K or whatever, some of the lighter vehicles in the game are essentially like you look at the truck, right,
Mm-hmm.
for orcs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
T8.
basically this like ramshackled together. I mean, that's literally their rule, ramshackle,
Mm-hmm.
like piece of machinery. And it's like, well, why is it twice as tough as a space marine or like a Terminator?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you know the lore at all, you're like, that probably doesn't really make sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. But also, you're talking to someone who's like a lore buff. So
Right.
this is where we start. And we start with the toughness. Like, we're going to start with vehicle toughness scale versus infantry toughness scale. And in order to get to 10th edition, we got to start at 7th and earlier. We're going to start at 7th. I'm not going earlier than that because we're not doing that.
Go look up the
So
history of Warhammer at that
yeah,
point.
go look at that. If you want to look about how we used to do allies, which was pretty fun, but you can make some absolutely broken lists. That was also a
We
good
have a
time.
video for that.
We have we have a video for that if you got time. If you got time and you got passion, you can do anything. All right. So anyways, the toughness scale. It's linear now, right? So you have a very clean scale going from 1 to essentially 13 or 14, whatever. Now you don't see anything that's like toughness 1 because no, actually the spore
Spore
mines are
mines.
tough. Spore mines are toughness 1, and I believe Grotzar and Gretchen are toughness
T2.
2. Yeah, but in general, like most of the infantry is going to range from like 3 to like 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like aggressors being 6 and like, guardsmen being 3, whatever. And then you look at like the vehicles, and you have like your main battle tanks being like 10, and then you have your super heavies like, the Rogel Dorn and the Land Raider being 12. So that, and it's actually an objectively, I think it's a good system because, and we'll get to the reason why later, but it's a good system because it's a nice, easy way of just like, okay, I know the toughness. I don't have to think too much about it. We can just move on with our lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not how it used to be. So I know that you've looked at the script, but for the viewers who are out there, Warhammer used to be a lot more complicated, and I don't know if
Oh.
that's like like
You don't say.
yeah. If you ever want to know what like old Warhammer was like, and I mean old like relatively speaking, because 8th edition was a massive change, but we'll get to that later. Then you got to go play Horus Heresy, because then you're going to start reading all these rules, and you're going to be like, what in the world like are half these things? At one point, whenever you had a flame weapon, right? So instead of rolling d6 shots, you literally had templates that you would have to put over the barrel of your gun, like plastic templates, and they were different sizes for like different
If you
types
had
of
a
flamers.
flamethrower, you actually
It
just
was
put
awesome.
like a
Yeah,
protractor in front of
it
it.
was awesome. And then you literally put this flame template over your flamethrower, and you would basically position it in such a way over like from that to your unit to your opponent's units, and you'd be like, all right, how many guys are getting under this flamethrower thing, and that's how many you hit. And even to the point where if you had multiple units like close together, you could hit 2 units with one attack.
Yep.
Right? So that's what I mean. Where it used to be more complicated. And honestly, that's not even that weird in all
That's pretty
things.
calm for now. Yeah.
That's pretty calm. So we're going to go to infantry because we're mainly focusing on toughness. Now, back in 7th edition, there were 2 different scales, right? So you had the linear toughness scale that we're all familiar with, but that was only for infantry and like bikers and mounted units, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Marines were toughness 4, just like they are now, and bikes were like toughness 5. I couldn't really find anything that was tougher than that, to be completely honest with you. I didn't also go through all the factions because I wasn't going to do that. Like I just wasn't.
Cannot be bothered.
I could not be bothered to do that. But in general, we're talking that like bikes were 4 or 5 and Marines were 4.
Right.
So in vehicles like the humble Rhino, right, you had a system called an armor value.
Mm-hmm.
And the armor value was like AV10 or like AV11, and you had 3 different ratings, right? Because Warhammer used to be more, how do you say, I would almost call it like a simulation, because I don't know if that would make more sense. I don't know how you would call it. It was more quote unquote realistic.
Right.
I mean, I say that in the most like, I say that in the most
Ignore the guy who's casting
ironic
the
way.
jump.
Yeah, I say it in the most ironic way possible.
But
So
like a 1911 can't accidentally wound a tank.
no, because how it used to be is that so you basically had armor values for all your vehicles, right?
Right.
So the lowest value was like a 10, and then the highest for thing that wasn't a Titan was like 14. And we're going to use the Land Raider as the example here. And basically, each vehicle had a front rating, a side rating, and a rear armor rating, which is very similar like to how you would do things in real life, right? You would put the majority of your armor in the front, and then on the sides, and then the rear should not be getting shot, so it's going to be the back. It's going to be the weakest.
Something in the War Thunder forums below.
Yeah, it's something like that. Please don't potentially get us in trouble.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I don't know if anyone has access, but please don't.
Don't do it.
So, how it worked, right? I'm not going to get into all the specifics of 7th edition because there was a lot of like weirdo rule interactions with like specific types of weapons, but we're going to mention a few, but I'm not getting into all of them. So, in general, how we wounded was also a little different, right? So, instead of it being like, so like if you're like double the toughness
You get
now,
twos.
yeah, it's on 2 or it's on 2. So, if you're like strength 8 to toughness 4 is 2s.
Mm-hmm.
It used to just be if you were over like 2 numbers higher. So, if you were strength 6, you were wounding Marines on 2s,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because infantry didn't really get above toughness 4, right? So, essentially, and that's not how it worked for vehicles, because remember how I said they had an armor value, they didn't have a toughness value.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, how the armor value worked is that, and there were a couple like abilities that would add to this roll, but essentially you would take your gun, let's say I'm shooting a bolter, right? So I shoot a bolter and I hit the Rhino. I then roll an additional d6 for every shot that hit the Rhino, and basically I add that whatever that value on that d6 that I rolled to the strength characteristic of the bolter,
Mm-hmm.
and then that would technically have to equal or get higher than the armor value in order to do damage.
Mm-hmm.
So the humble Rhino was AV11 around all the sides. So with a bolter, you literally could not, in anything
Yeah.
strength 4 and below, you literally could not wound a Rhino with regular fire.
Okay.
And it was actually I think that's kind of a cool system. But it basically got rid of the idea of like anything can wound anything. And again, we'll go to that later. And so you might be wondering, right? So like chain swords couldn't do anything. Power swords couldn't do anything because they were like strength 5 or strength 4.
Right.
And there was some more other stuff. And basically, unless you had like a heavy bolter could like wound a Rhino on like a 6, like you'd hit
Right.
and then
If you
wound,
rolled max.
yeah. But in return for this, vehicles didn't actually have like saving throws unless you were like had cover from like a building or like another model in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like an exception to the rule. In general, you wouldn't have an armor saving throw, and you only had like 3 or 4 health depending on the type of vehicle.
Yeah.
So unless you had something like a Melta, right, and that was strength 8, you were like not wounding a land raider. Like you just weren't. Because you had to be at least strength 8, and then you would wound a land raider on like a 6,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then Meltas would actually roll 2d6, and then you would add them together, right?
Yeah, because they're Meltas.
It was a anti-tank weapon, which I don't like the way Meltas are now, and I love that. Like, I mean, it was like it's like you like had to take stuff to like actually deal damage.
It makes me sad how Meltas are this edition.
Yeah, I know. It's very sad. But think about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now, like Power Fists, Power Fists like will wound like most vehicles on like 5s.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't even wound a vehicle, like a Land Raider. You couldn't even wound it unless it was like a 6 on the Power Fist, right?
Oh, wow.
You wounded it on 6s. You had way less attacks back then.
Yeah, it was
now
like
that's not
3 attacks at most.
Oh, yeah, that's like you're a fucking captain.
Yeah.
Like you might get 3 attacks.
Yeah.
But I will say that like for Land Raiders and any of those big vehicles that had like armor 14 all around, if you were in melee, you actually used the rear armor facing value. So if you were like a Predator tank, I think it had like a rear armor value of like a 12.
Mm-hmm.
So you would, if you had a Power Fist, you'd like wound a vehicle on like a 4.
Okay.
Right? So that wasn't a bad system, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Now,
yeah.
But also back then you had to pay for all your stuff. So you might not be bringing a Power Fist squad. Like you might not be bringing a Power Fist on like a squad that's not designed to be in melee, right? Because why would you?
Right.
Because you don't really want to. And also Power Fist, like there's a whole initiative step. We're not getting into that. But you know what you could do instead is that if you look at infantry in general, they almost have like no abilities right now to damage like any vehicles reliably. And I don't know if that's like a bad thing, but they really don't in melee and in shooting. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah.
I mean, you have like I'm trying to think, what's like a good example of like a really good, I guess the Khorne, like Exalted 8-bound, because like they have that anti-vehicle 3+ rule now.
Yeah.
And what else you got? I'm trying to think of like what's a good, I guess like Blood Angels right now.
Brokir Thunderkin with their shooting is anti-vehicle 3 out.
Yeah, and you have like the Meltas and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I feel like melee is not super good into vehicles unless you have like some additional rule. Because like what most melee like caps out at like 8 or 9. There's not that
Yeah.
much strength 10 melee. Like that was I remember a big problem for Tyranids.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
in the beginning of the edition, they had to make them stronger with the synapse buffs because it's like
Yeah.
what your hive
It
tyrants
was an
wounded like a
entire year.
rhino on like a
Yeah.
4
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, sure, we get twin linked, but not everything was the strength it should have been.
And it's like that coupled with like the AP reductions, you're just like, oh, there's like
Oh.
a chance, there's like a good chance that this hive tyrant does not kill this rhino
Yeah.
in melee.
Yeah. Which is like
Like
criminal.
that is criminal. So one of the things you could do back in and so the point I'm getting to is that like melee in general like isn't super good right now into vehicles, and it wasn't really good into vehicles back then either, depending on unless you had something specifically like the chain fist, which like again it had the melt the rule, so you'd roll like 2d6.
Mm-hmm.
But instead what you could do is you could like equip dudes with things like melt the charges,
Right.
right? And it was like 5 points, I think, for a squad upgrade. It's like you spend a point a dude to give them all melt the charges.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, if you were in melee with a vehicle, you could, instead of doing their regular attacks, you could get like one attack with this melt the charge, and it would like you could absolutely like smoke a tank because it
That
was
is
like.
funny. You
But
could
that's also
essentially just
like
throw a melter grenade on it.
yeah, that's exactly yeah. It's like you're planting essentially like C4 on like a tank.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't mind that. That's me. Like, I think that that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it more thematic at the very least.
And this is Warhammer, man.
Like,
Glorious
let me.
melee combat.
I know it is glorious melee combat, but it was really funny because if you didn't take, so because of like the whole way like vehicles and stuff like that work, like if you didn't take either like squads that had melt the charges or like anti-tank, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a real chance that you could basically go up against like units that you literally could not wound.
Yeah. Just straight up couldn't touch.
You just couldn't do damage to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of was forced you to build a balance list if you think about it. And also because I don't know, because like would you argue that like okay, so perfect examples like I remember going to Nova last year.
Mm-hmm.
I took 0 anti-tank shooting in my list, and I did fine.
Kind of to that point, I brought Votan to Nova and the Hearthguard Terminators. I killed more vehicles with the grenades than the plasma.
Yeah, so it's like it's not really required anymore,
Yeah.
which is
Just
I
buff
don't know.
one unit up enough and everything. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
everything's anti-tank.
yeah, everything is anti-tank. But and like so you think about like the Melta charges, right? And I was just thinking about it, and I wish that it was still in the game that you could give units stuff like that. I mean, you actually have some abilities that are similar, and that's what I was going to get at, is that they've been replaced with abilities or stratagems, because that's functionally like what the grenade stratagem was,
Mm-hmm.
or is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because
You
it's like
used
a
to
way
pay
for your
10 points on the unit.
yeah. It used to be because it used to be like for a unit, it might have been 5 points a dude. So it was like a 25-point upgrade, but then you could absolutely like smoke any vehicle if you get into combat with it.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
again,
remember,
I mean,
oh man, adrenal glands on warriors.
in ninth edition,
Oh,
yeah, I get +1 damage,
+1
or not +1
move.
damage, +1 strength. It was +1 strength.
It was +1 move, and +1 to the advance roll, and +1 strength on the charge.
It was a really good ability.
Oh yeah, and I would.
I
It was so nice to pay for it
I mean, how much? It was like what, like 5 points a
for
model,
the
Something
unit
like
at
that?
the start.
Oh wow, that's even better than I remember.
Well, that was one of the quickest change they did, other than just changing Votan's codex on release.
Yeah, and so the point I'm trying to get at is, back in the early days, you had to build a balanced list because if you didn't, then like vehicles kind of became tyrants. And by the way, if it sounds like vehicles are overpowered, like they seriously only had like 3 like hull points or 4 hull points. So I think I mentioned that earlier,
The
but
second something gets through, it pretty much kills it immediately.
yeah, because you'd roll on like a damage chart as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like if melt is also like into your, this is where your armor penetration became like important,
Mm-hmm.
like your armor penetration value, because it would add to the like the penetration chart. Because essentially, if you like matched the armor, like the AV rating,
Mm-hmm.
if you matched it, it was a glance and you just like lose a health.
Mm-hmm.
If you penetrated it, then you roll like the penetration like table,
Mm-hmm.
or it's like the
And one of
like the
them was just
penetrating
like
hit.
this unit blows up or something.
Yeah, it was literally like if you rolled like a 7+ on like one die,
Mm-hmm.
but if you had like extra AP or whatever, like it added like +2 or whatever. If you're like
Mm-hmm.
AP1,
Mm-hmm.
like the vehicle just exploded.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if like one shot goes through and you're like, like
Mm-hmm.
if one melt the charge goes through and you roll like a 5 or a 6 on the like the penetration table, like it just explodes.
Mm-hmm.
Also back then, like you could get things where it's like weapons could be destroyed, you could just become immobilized, like
Mm-hmm.
your vehicles could just like stand still,
Broken
can't
tracks.
move it. Oh dude, that's why actually the Rhino was weirdly super good. One thing I can tell you this right now. How much? Okay, so how much is a Rhino now? Do you know off the top of
Like
your head?
75 points.
All right. How much do you? I know this. I know this answer. How much do you think a Rhino was back in 7th edition? Back when things were more expensive.
105.
It's a little lower than that.
90.
35 points.
Huh?
The Rhinos were 35 points. Yes.
Okay.
you
Okay.
would see like 6 Rhinos transporting dudes every game because they
Oh
were
my gosh.
so cheap. Do you know how glorious that sounds?
Oh
Because
my
they would
gosh.
get, because the thing is, if you gave everyone melt the charges, you could just smoke them.
Yeah.
And like they did no damage. Like they just had bolters. They can't even wound each other.
Yeah.
Like Rhinos couldn't hurt each other.
Yeah.
So you could just have like 5 Rhinos for 165 points. Oh, like, you know how awesome that would look? Like
Oh my
I personally think
gosh.
that would be so funny.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
imagine someone running like 5, 6 Rhinos now. It's like
Yeah.
that's like a over a quarter of your army.
Yeah.
Back then, like though, like that was what you did because you're like,
Yeah.
dude, 35 points for my Rhino
Okay,
to protect my dudes.
I'm starting to understand the joke of rhinos are free. Everybody has too many.
That no, seriously, because like you would have like, yeah, you'd have like 6 in a list because like if you needed extra units and you needed your guys to get places,
Dude,
there was only one.
GW is getting ready to curb stomp the rhino.
Yeah,
Like
there's
there's no way that they're gonna keep the rhino anymore. At least not
there.
as it is now. Like they gotta
I mean,
primaritize the rhino just so that they can get everybody get like you
how
saying this has
mad?
made me realize that they are never going to get profit on the
How,
rhino again.
dude? Think of because like so, yeah. Think about that. They were so cheap back then, and people did seriously have like 6 Rhinos, 6 to like 8, it depending on like whatever. But like yeah, I don't know if you'd ever. I don't even know if you could legally run 8, but people had like 6
They would
because
max
like
as many as they could.
I mean, think about that. Like
Yeah.
like a power fist was like 15 points. A
Yeah.
Rhino was 35.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So
Do you know how
everybody had to bring at least 3 units of las cannons or something.
No, seriously, like you had to bring anti-tank.
Yeah.
Or you
Wow.
bring like your tactical marine squads, like everyone's getting melt the charges
Yeah.
because it's like you need them.
Yeah. To be fair, like all you need is 3 melta charges per unit to pop a rhino.
Yeah, I think it might have been I don't remember if it was a squad upgrade off the top of my head. It might have just been 5 points for the squad to like get it. And like if you got into combat with the marine squads, like it was just guaranteed dead.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you think about this like thematically, if a space marine, right? Because space marines, if anyone's played space marine or like anyone's like read any of the books, like they're supposed to be these absolute tyrants on the battlefield, right? So if
Mm.
a space marine gets on top of your tank, right? and they just like throw some like melta grenade. Essentially, just open your hatch and just throw like melta grenades in your It's just gonna blow up,
Editor,
right?
put the clip of Titus, but put Subway Surfers on underneath it, so that
Yeah,
way we don't
exactly.
get copyrighted.
Yeah, but like no, no, not don't get copyrighted by Amazon. But like if anyone's just to get an example, go watch Secret Level on Amazon and you
Mm-hmm.
see Titus literally charge through a car.
Yeah,
Like it's a
and
dune
then
buggy, but
continue to move forward and drop a grenade down a Lehman Russ's hatch.
yeah, like that's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I don't actually hate that. Like I don't hate the concept of like an infantry unit just like piling on a vehicle and just like destroying it.
I mean, in real life warfare. Now I know we're getting crazy. I know we're getting crazy,
Yeah.
but you have an infantry squad supporting a heavy vehicle squad.
Yeah, you have to run your infant like this isn't even a joke, but in warfare, like you have to have infantry supporting your tanks
Because like Molotovs can just
because
cook
of the
people
exact
alive.
thing we just talked about.
Yeah, like you because you need all right armored convoys, all that jazz, like Humvees and stuff. That's so that way the guys can get out and immediately support the tank and just keep away. Like infantry plays keep away while the tank take care of the problem.
Yeah, because it's like tanks like and anyways, we're getting off topic, but
Yep, yep,
like
yep, yep, yep.
as a concept, like so that's how like vehicles could get destroyed in melee, right? But you had to like specially like equip units for it because I don't think you're going to be given your like devastators or like in your case like your thunderkin. Like you're not giving them melt the charges because you're like
They got
these are
it.
supposed. Yeah, they got it with their guns, but also it's like let's say you have like a heavy flamer squad,
Mm-hmm.
right, or something. You're like these, or like you just have a unit that's just supposed to be shooting.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in melee, then something has gone horrendously wrong,
Yep.
and their ability of killing a vehicle is the least of their concerns right now.
Yep.
So you just move forward with that.
Yep.
So now we've explained seventh edition, and I actually like I got just thinking about it. Like it's so funny because sometimes like it's like a free upgrade for the unit depending if you're like a veteran squad. So it's like you could just have like Stern Guard just to, like be absolute menaces to like Lehman Russes. By the way, the Chimera was weaker than the Rhino used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it still is. It might be still. Is it? What's the toughness of a Chimera?
Chimera, I think it's 8 or 9.
Oh, if it is 8, then it is weaker than a Rhino because Rhino's 9 right now. Then it begs me the question: why the hell is the Hellhound toughness? Why does that? Oh wait, no, I think it's actually a weak toughness, but as a 2+. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Okay, so we're gonna fast forward to the modern 40k,
Right.
right? And this is probably the biggest change that the. Now I did. I admittedly I didn't play like in first edition, so I might be completely speaking out of my ass here. But at least in the past 15 years, going from like sixth to seventh, from seventh to eighth was such a drastic change for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue, and I'd have to like go to some historians, but you could argue it's the biggest change the game has ever had. So there were two massive changes that fundamentally changed 40k forever. One, they got rid of the armor value scale, right? And they just basically made the linear toughness scale that we know and love today, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so in addition to that, they started giving vehicles more wounds. So instead of having like 3 hull points, it got like 10 wounds on your Rhino and it became toughness 7 and it also gained a save because before you didn't have saves,
Mm-hmm.
right? The other thing it did, and this is more important, they made a rule that they said all rolls of a 6 are successful. And what that meant is that now all guns and all chain swords and all las pistols and everything can now technically wound any other unit, regardless of the toughness scale difference, regardless of anything, as long as you roll a 6 to wound. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you can explain like I don't know if I can explain like why that was such a giant change. Because before, if your strength of your weapon was less than 8, right? And this is when like the strength of weapons were not high because remember, you'd really only see like toughness 5 at the most, right? Because those were your
Mm-hmm.
bike units.
Mm-hmm.
So if your stuff was like less than tough, like strength 8, which would be rare, you just couldn't wound a land raider. And land raiders were very common back then.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to imagine that like you could realistically, and I remember this happening is that they also came up with the Redemptor Dreadnought, right, as part of the Primaris range.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing a guy charge a Redemptor Dreadnought into a squad of orc boys, like a 20-man squad of orc boys, because he's like, oh, I literally can't be hurt here,
Yeah.
right? Because he's just thinking like, oh yeah, vehicles and infantry, like no problem. And it
Mm-hmm.
gets picked up in one round of combat. He's like, oh, oh,
Yeah.
it's just it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
And that I think is really, I think that change is fundamentally just completely overhauled the game,
Yeah.
at least in my mind.
Because it's made it so that way anything can kill anything if it's dedicated enough.
If it's dedicated enough, and that's another thing that we start to see. Remember how we said earlier that Smug's like, wow, 3 attacks on a power fist, like that was a lot back in 7th edition. I think you might have been 1 attack per guy for a Marine. You may have been 2. I don't think, no, I think you were 1 because Primaris was 2 in 8th edition, and the tactical Marines were still 1 attack. So like every dude had like 1 attack, unless you were like a captain. You might have had like 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now you look at like an assault intercessor having 4 base attacks.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, dang. So you basically quadrupled the amount of attacks that like a singular model has,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing, but we'll get to that later. Now I don't really want to get to I don't really want to get into like 8th edition as much because it kind of was, let's say, I don't want to say well, I mean, this was the edition where you could basically have an army. If you were playing Eldar, your army could basically could be hit on 6s.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say there were some interesting rule interactions.
Mm-hmm. That's a healthy way of putting
That's
it.
a healthy way of saying it. But one of the things that Games Workshop did was they actually balanced the game because this edition with change was so massive, right? And I'm pretty sure they did this in the past, but I know they specifically did it for 8th and 9th edition, is that they had external playtesters, like and external players, like content creators and whatever. Like they all would have been doing it if they were big, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't a playtester. I can tell you that as much. But what I can say on pretty good authority is that the external playtesters were told to balance the game around the new Primaris Marines that were coming out. And essentially what that meant was the game is going to be balanced around a toughness 4, a strength 4 Marine with 2 wounds,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I can also tell you that I can say on good information or on good authority is that Games Workshop didn't really balance the game around abilities. And you
Yeah.
could obviously tell when you got into it, and they just based it on stat lines. Now, I kind of understand that because that is way easier to do simulations on.
Also, in theory, like, it technically makes sense.
Yes. If you ever want to do like the math, like, perfect example, like if I want to take my custodians, right? And I want to be like, all right, let's see what it can kill, like in theory, right? But without any buffs. I'm not taking the army rule. I'm just taking the data sheets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I take like 4 spears, they got 20 attacks, right? Now that's a ton. But realistically, they'll get like 17 hits. Let's say let's say I'm fighting Marines, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wound on 3. So you're looking at like 12 hits. And then it's like, okay, it's they have a 5-up save. I'll kill like 8 Marines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're thinking like that seems like a lot of Marines, you would be correct because a squad of intercessors is like 80 points. So if you take a 10-man, you barely don't kill a 10-man. Now that's kind of a drastic example because like you're taking like a 200-point unit going up against like a functionally like 160-point unit, but also it's a whole thing because it's like they're supposed to have different roles or whatever. But the point that I'm trying to get at is those 10 Marines could probably kill like 2 to 3 custodians, but you're not like outright killing squads is the point I'm trying to get at.
Right.
And that is sort of like how it was balanced. And it makes sense in theory. Like if you were to take Votan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this because we've played and I've played against Votan. The moment they lose their army rule,
Worthless.
that they do like nothing.
Worthless.
It's like hitting on fours and like weirdly enough, there's not a lot of high strength stuff except for the rail cannon and the last cannons on the Sagittars. But other than that, like there's like what? I mean like what
Everything is strength 9 at most, other than that. Like, the high last cannons on the Sagittar, the magma rail cannon, which is strength 18, but it's one shot, hitting on 4s without the army rule. And then strength 10 on the conversion beamer, also the land fort. Everything else below that is 9 or lower.
So you can tell that they did something different for 10th because what was I going to say? Votan was used to be a ballistic skill 3 army.
Marine light.
They were Marine light, but technically heavy because they were tougher.
Yeah.
But and you could see just like the release on like 10th edition Eldar. Oh my god. Oh my god. They were people complain, and I'm one of the people that complain about stuff being overpowered. If you ever want to be like Death Guard right now, definitely that detachment, that book is way too strong. Like I can tell you just by reading it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Did you watch that? Like, and if anyone wants good information, go watch Auspex Tactics. There's a very credible damage combo with like 10 Plague Marines, and it's like you kill like 20
unit.
It kills like 27. No, it kills like 19 like Marines just in shooting.
Just in shooting.
And it kills like a Land Raider on average just in shooting.
Yeah.
It's a Plague Marine squad.
Just your basic battle line.
I mean, yeah, it's like, and you don't even need the Rhino, right? It's like 300 points without the Rhino. Yeah, so essentially to wrap, like, so the jump from 7th to 8th to do like to wrap it up was they made the toughness scale all the same, and they essentially made they added the rule that like a 6 automatically succeeds regardless of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that started to change, and also attacks went up. They started like adding more attacks on things because they also had like Marines got something called shock assault.
Mm-hmm.
That was more of a 9th. They had it in 8th, but there's also a thing in 9th where they got an additional attack like on the charge or if they were charged. So if you're curious why an assault or like an intercessor has, 3 attacks base, it's because they just put shock assault into the profile like automatically.
Yep.
So now we're getting into 9th edition, right? And 9th edition was definitely killy. A lot of people would argue it was too killy. But when I go back to 8th edition, I don't think it was as killy as 8th edition. If you ever go back and read some of the rules they had, oh my god.
Dude, I remember me and you, the first time we played a game, and it was just end of round 2, I won. Because it's just, I dealt more mortals than you did.
Yeah, and it was just like... Dude, there was the builds you could make in 8. It was such an alpha strike. It was such an alpha strike thing. Like if there was like a real chance if you went first, you're just gonna win.
Yeah.
Especially if you played that Iron Hand, like double Leviathan Dreadnought Storm Cannon build.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a pull. But if you ever go back and like read about it, go to 1D. I'm not gonna say. I'm not.
Write in the comments below if you want us to find that information for you.
I can find that. I know exactly where it is. But no, you could do some outrageous things in that edition. So they try to tone that down, and we'll get to one of the ways they toned it down later. But it's actually the beginning of the end, sort of. It's gonna lead into the next episode. So. To put it in perspective, right? If you play 10th edition, people the advertisement for the edition was that they're like, all right, guys, there's going to be less rerolls and we're going to make it less lethal. Now that obviously was a lie.
Obviously, dude, Nids got more auras from 10th edition than they had in 9th.
So exactly, so what they meant by that is instead of every captain having a 6-inch aura of reroll hit rolls of 1. And then having like an aura for your lieutenants to reroll hit rolls of 1, we're basically just going to make it that there's going to be less random rerolls, but instead you're just going to get more abilities to just fully reroll all your dice,
Yeah.
which honestly is way more unhealthy.
Yeah. Attaching characters to a unit.
That's actually how it used to be, though, to be fair.
Okay,
Like in
yeah,
7th
yeah, yeah,
edition,
yeah, yeah.
that's how it used to be. But the
I
thing is,
showed up in 8th when you didn't attach characters to a unit, and if they just stood around them, they would give them the buffs. That's when I joined, and it feels like a lot of the problems here are a little bit because of that.
so funny enough, back in 7th, we're going all the way back.
Okay.
No, but just real quick. But in 7th, so you could like attach like a captain to your like I don't know your Vanguard veteran squad, right? We'll just use them as an example. And let's say that Vanguard veteran squad got killed or whatever, right? But the captain was still alive. That captain could then go and like freely attach to another unit,
Yeah.
and I like that. I think that that's cool.
I also think that's cool. However, I'm also thinking of the implications of now I just bring 2 10-man Terminators. When one dies, if my call's close to living, just drop the other unit next to him and let them connect.
But that's cool.
That is
like,
funny. It is hilarious.
Cool. Like, that's a cool ability, and it makes precision, like, more important.
So it's much more valuable.
Because you're just like, oh, dude, I don't need this guy survive. Like, imagine if Lamarty's, like, you know what I mean? If, like, he could just be like, all right, I'm going to go send this unit in. We're going to kill something. They're going to survive the reprieve. I'm going to deep strike, or I'm going to rapid ingress my other 10-man Death Company unit. And then he's going to go join them, and they're going to go do their stuff. And I'm going to go send the other ones off to go kill something and die.
I do think that would be cool.
That's cool.
It does sound
That's cool.
That does impossible to balance because I just know for a fact that Calgar is going to break it somehow.
Oh yeah, you're going to run your I don't even know what you do. Yeah, you're going to run like I don't
Calgar
even know.
and 2 company heroes.
Well, you got to run with the captain. But what I was gonna say is like you could run like Calgar, and then you just run like 2 3-man like Blade Guard squads to run behind him.
Oh,
so it's like when his company hero squad dies, he just goes and attach, and now you got to get through all the invulns again. And then you can get him to reroll his invulns, right? Because that's their ability.
Yeah, reroll ones.
Yeah, reroll invulns of ones or reroll hit rolls of one. So then,
just remember, everybody, GW wouldn't catch this because they only test by datasheet.
Yeah, that blew my mind when my buddy told me that. I'm like, that can't be real. He's like, no, they said do not take abilities into account. We just want to know like how do the data sheets feel like in the strength and toughness interactions? How do they feel?
Which is but insane. Just nothing, like, just absolutely unhinged.
I mean, you could, that's a word for it.
Okay, but the thing is with my Terminators, like the Votan Hearthguard, they straight up just have -1 to wound if strength is greater. So, like, just ignore abilities. Just, like, that just is, like, 7 or higher, you're just wrong. Like, from anything from 7 to 11, you are wounding on force. And if you just don't take that ability into account, it's just like, okay, you're not actually a part of this.
And you're probably just not going to kill the unit.
No.
And so I had to go back and read some of the like notes that I had written down prior. And so what I have on good authority is what Games Workshop was trying to do was when they increased the toughness scale was trying to keep the average toughness of the game like relatively the same to what it was prior.
Right.
But the problem with that is when you increase the toughness scale and then you add all these tougher vehicles, like you're going to have a frame shift, right? Essentially like where that toughness is going to go. But they wanted to keep it in general, like closer to what the average toughness in the game was. And if you remember, it was balanced around Marines being toughness 4 and strength 4. So, but when you add this new toughness scale in,
you start to have closer to 8.
You know, honestly, now that I think about it, I'm going to stop there. Because this is going to be a precursor for part 2. So we're going to go back. We're going to go back, right? And going to 9th edition was too killy. So what they did we talked about rerolls up prior, but one of the things that they also did is that they reduced AP in general because like power swords were AP3. Basically, everything that was AP3 is now AP2.
Yeah.
Unless you're
There's
sanguinary guard for some reason,
there's a
then
few
you're AP3 still.
exceptions. Yeah, there's a few exceptions in the game. Um, some things that were AP4 became AP5.
Yeah. By the way, and so a lot of the thing is that since the max toughness, so a land raider was toughness 8, right?
Hmm.
So plasmas were strength 8, and plasma kind of dominated ninth edition
Oh my
because
gosh.
you would wound heavy vehicles on 4s, you would wound lighter vehicles on 3s, marines on 2s. This is if you overcharged or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and think about that difference right there. So if you took plasma and brought it in from the old scale, you would wound a land raider on like a 6 and like a tank on like maybe a 5,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like predators were armor facing value 13, armor value 13.
Yeah.
So you like wound them on 5s and then you like wound land raiders on 6s, which is more similar to how it is now,
Yeah.
right? So when you think about it that way, it kind of makes sense that plasmas like don't wound as well. But when you look at Meltas were strength 8 and they were AP4. I don't think that actually changed
Strength
from 8th
9
edition.
now.
But they're strength 9. Meltas also dominated ninth edition
Mm-hmm.
because like I mean like just they would just go through armor. And also
Yeah.
vehicles didn't get cover back then.
No.
So,
Vehicles didn't earn it.
yeah, vehicles were ninth edition was a super heavy vehicle or a super infantry heavy
Oh my
meta.
gosh. I bought so many warriors.
They were so good
They were
back
so
then.
good.
They were strength 8 on the bone swords. If you bought adrenal glands, like think about that. You're moving all
Mm.
marines on 2s and like land
Dude, they were
raiders on
just
4s.
stoties without the invuln.
Oh, but they didn't need the invuln
Because we had
because
transhuman. We're getting off topic. Off topic.
yeah, we're getting off topic. So well, it is on topic because ninth edition was so killy.
So
Like,
killy.
have you ever looked at Karn's data sheet from ninth edition?
Wasn't it
I
like
recently went back and looked
12
at it.
attacks?
No, he wasn't 12. He wasn't 12, but I went back and looked at it recently, kind of just for fun. So he had 8 attacks.
Oh, right.
At,
Corn. Yeah.
yeah, so he had 8 attacks at strength 8, AP 4, damage 3.
Huh?
Dude, I looked at that, I'm like, oh my god.
Huh?
Like, unless you were a land raider, you just didn't get an armor save.
Yeah. Oh my
Think about that
gosh.
now. He's 8 attacks at 723.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, everything in their mom got an invuln, though.
That was another thing. So because 8th edition was so killy, right? They had to start adding all of this stuff in there. Like I remember, I think it was, I don't know if he was the first character, but it started becoming a lot more common after this. Gazgul Thraka, he had an ability. He was like the first one, I think.
Oh my gosh. Can only
Yes, it
take
was awesome.
3 damage per phase.
Per phase. It was awesome.
You shoot him
Like-
with a you hit him with a last cannon and deal 20 damage. Nah, 3.
3, baby. He had 9 wounds too. You had to triple phase him.
It had
Same
to
with,
be psychic shooting and then charge.
yes, because and you know who else had that rule was Abaddon. Abaddon also had that rule.
And
He
then
was 9 wounds
Gilliman
as
got
well.
the rule, and then like
Yeah. So you had that. You had invulns on like everything, right? Like I mean, almost everything like that was worth anything had an invuln. There was that one detachment for Votan that if you had a 2+ armor, like their whole detachment rule, and I'll put this in quotes, because that's their quote unquote detachment, their equivalent. It was if you had a 3+ armor, you got a 5+ invuln. And if you had a 2+ armor, you got a 4+ invuln. And also, you were permanent -1 AP just on everything. You were permanent.
you had armor contempt, yeah.
Permanently.
Yeah.
They had to put that in the game because Marines were just not getting saves,
Yeah.
or like everything was saving on like a 6-up.
Yeah, because
And
whenever by the way, you would just give every single unit plasma and melta upgrades for their weapons. Like there would be no man left behind. There, like if you had a unit with bolters, they did nothing but sit on the home field.
like if you could give your boys plasmas, you're giving your boys plasmas. Because you just could.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in the exact opposite, right? So remember how we said that 6s to hit always wound, right?
Mm-hmm.
There then started becoming a different and an interesting way of playing the game.
Lethal hits.
Lethal hits, and also just like re-rolls to wound. Now,
Yeah.
if you were able to get the other concept that started coming into this is what happened with Blood Angels, because Blood Angels in 8th edition, and we'll actually go there now. Also, we even forgot to mention transhuman physiology, which was the ability that
You could not be wounded on a
1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, like just it does not matter what the strength was. You can't be wounded. You're getting shot by a Warlord Titan? Nah.
I loved it because it literally said in the ability is that you can only be wounded on an unmodified, cannot be wounded on an unmodified 1, 2, or 3, regardless of any abilities the unit or the weapon has.
Yep.
So even if you were like anti-infantry, which was in the game, it was not called that, but it did exist. And I believe Drukari Poison was like this.
Yes.
But it was just like, nope, it has to be unmodified.
Yep.
And if you're curious if that sounds way too good, it's because it was. The entirety of all of the Dark Angel Terminators had this rule.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Like, it was awesome.
Well,
like,
hey, at least it wasn't a detachment that just gave your entire army the rule.
No, you just take only Terminators, and then it was basically you had it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and so there was actually a lot of like strength 8 weapons as well, like in melee, right? Power fists and like thunder hammers. And if you're curious, like how they like settled on 8, it was because that is an older rule where it was like, oh, it would be strength times 2, and you were strength 4, so it would be strength 8. But also, if you've noticed, power fists are way better than thunder hammers, right? You'd say that?
Yeah.
So that's because power fists used to be -1 to hit, just like the thunder hammer, but they got rid of that. So like now they're just like
they're just really, better.
They're just better. They're just better for some reason. I don't really get why, but they just are.
Yep.
They used to be higher AP in 8th edition, and then 9th edition thunder hammers were strictly just like worse versions of they're just more expensive versions of power fists.
But they were cheaper.
But they were but they were cheaper. But you probably would just take the power fist. But this is where we start getting into things when I started talking about now that anything can wound anything, right? This is where you started to get some interesting rules, and I think of Lance, right? So I'm going to go to the beginning of Lance. So you know Lance is an ability, right? Very common now. Almost every army has like a Lance strat, which is basically on the charge +1 to wound, right? So very specific units used to have this rule. In 9th, I actually can only name the Virtus Praetors, the Custodian jet bikes. I can't name a single other. Like, I cannot name another unit that had this ability. I mean, is anything coming to your mind? Because I got nothing.
Warriors did in Behemoth. Like, Behemoth had it as, like, just a thing you could do for psychic power.
I thought their thing... Oh, but it was a psychic power.
It was a psychic power, yeah. It wasn't base.
Gotcha. So, but that's what I mean. So it was like there were some... It wasn't very common is the point I'm trying to get at. But now it's incredibly common.
Right.
So, 8th edition Blood Angels. And I remember how I said everything got more killy, and everything started to be able to wound everything, right?
Yeah.
The ability for 8th edition Blood Angels was that they just got Lance on the charge. Functionally, it was the gain +1 to the wound roll, right?
Right.
And this made them, by far, the best melee army in the game. Because, like, everything is, like, AP3. Like, if your power swords are, doesn't matter if you can, like, it doesn't matter if it's like you get like an extra attack with power sword, but it's like if it's AP3 and you're wounding on 5s, like at some point, like you're just gonna do so many wounds. And this is what you're starting to see now in Warhammer, is that you can use the power of statistics and the law of averages, right? Warhammer used to be a game where there were not many attacks, but now when your 5-man jump pack intercessor squad is putting out 20 attacks with chainswords.
You got mortals on the charge, mortals with grenades.
On the charge. Yeah, and it's just like you can start doing averages and just being like, this unit can now start doing like way too much damage. And when you start adding plus like blanket +1s to wound to stuff, And already, you're already like, and think about assault intercessors, right? Just
Yeah.
re-rolling all your wounds on an objective. If you're wounding on 6s and you re-roll all your wounds, you're functionally, mathematically wounding on 5s,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if everything can wound everything, it's like, if that Land Raider has 4 wounds and you have like 25 attacks and you're just like, at AP1, if you do the math in your head, you're like, if I Oath of Moments this, right, and I give it full rerolls to hit and full rerolls to wound because it's on an objective, and let's just say I give it that, I don't even need to use Lance. Like, you do the math in your head and you're like, I should kill this thing on average. And before, like, you just couldn't do that. Funny enough, they actually got rid of that rule for Blood Angels in 9th edition because they realized it was disgustingly broken.
Yeah.
Because it was so bad. Because also think about it, it's like if you were strength 5, like you wounded everything in the game on like minimum 4s.
Yeah.
Like if you were a power fist, you wounded
Minimum.
everything in the game minimum 3s.
Minimum.
No, yeah, sorry, maximum 3s, unless you had transhuman, but that was a whole other thing.
We'll get into that. Yeah.
I get into that. Well, we already talked about it a little bit, but
Yeah.
funny enough, they actually changed the rule to like +1 attack, and then also I was looking at the death company data sheets, and their ability was that they also got +1 attack. And so remember, if you charge, you got +1 attack. So like Death Company could take plasma or take power fists. Also, like your attacks weren't linked to your weapon you take; it was just linked to your data sheet.
Yeah.
Like you had a certain amount of attacks per model.
Yep.
So like your Death Company could literally just take like strength, or could just take like 5 attacks each on the charge with power fists.
Yep.
4 now, but like, I mean, 5 attacks is kind of wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so that was the beginning of Lance, like being like more generalized. Like you said, Behemoth had it as a psychic power. Virtus Praetors had it like as an ability, and I don't really think I can name a whole lot else that did.
Yeah.
I looked at the Blood Angel stratagems; they didn't have it. Khorne didn't have it. Like World Eaters didn't.
Slanesh
Maybe, but like, I mean, not a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really play against in tournaments for 8th or 9th, so.
I will say, when I look at like the kind of like, and this sort of goes into war gear and whatnot, but when you look at the like going back to 7th, and it's like you couldn't do damage unless you brought melt the charges and you paid extra for it. Kind of makes me a little bit sad that they don't that all that stuff went away. Like,
dude, I wish I could pay for warrior gear. I want to pay for warrior gear so bad.
I don't. And also, it was like war gear is just. Now, I will say they consolidated a lot of war gear, right?
Yes, which was good.
Which was good because, funny enough, you used to have like 5 different types of power weapons. Really,
I don't need a power sword, a power axe, a power knife, a power fist.
What about your power spear?
I don't care. I don't need a chain axe, a chain sword, a chain spear.
That was true. They were different. They had different profiles back then.
Yeah,
chain axes were slightly stronger than chain swords.
Yeah, like a chain hammer somehow. Like
chain glaive.
Chain glaive. That, excuse me.
That's what the Lord Discordant on Hellstalker uses.
I will put myself in front of him for him to slaughter me.
Dude, they actually used to be so good.
They're pretty good still.
No, I have not seen. What are you talking about? I have not
in
seen
the Codex.
No, I've not seen one on the table.
Isn't it the Lord on Invocatus? Doesn't he have a chain fist?
No. I'm talking about put a picture of the Lord Discordant on Hellstalker.
Is it the fisherman?
I don't know if he's a fisherman, but it's like the giant spider crab thing.
Yeah, and he's riding it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
he's cool model.
He's gone fishing.
That's a really cool model, and it used to be really good.
Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I in my brain he's the fisherman, which
I don't know why, but he's horrible this edition.
He's just god awful this edition.
But yeah, I don't mind that. But I do kind of miss the little special stuff, right? Like, you had to buy your grenades if you were going to take them.
Mm-hmm. I think if you had to pay 5 points to put grenades on a unit, it wouldn't be as much of a problem.
I actually don't think it would either. I mean, because the thing is, and this is sort of getting into the different topic, right? Because also remember how we were mentioning all of the super busted defensive abilities.
Mm-hmm.
In response to them, you had to start like they added mortal wounds. Now, if
Yeah.
you think about it, you always had like you there was always the chance that you weren't going to get a save, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why they had the invulnerable save. And it was kind of like this problem that they had of like, oh, if you don't have an invuln and now all stuff's like AP3 or AP4, you just like don't get saves, and so now you just have to kind of suffer. And so they started giving all these abilities to like not get wounded or
Mm-hmm. When
have,
did all right, Mr. History? When
oh
did
boy.
Feel No Pains get added to the game?
Oh, they've been in the game forever.
Just always, even before
I
Mortals.
mean, yeah, think about this. They used to have like so Primarchs, and like oh yeah, they've always been like Feel No Pains have always been in the game.
Okay.
Like I can tell you exactly. I want to do a video on this, and we might if we have time. There's a very funny build of an Iron Hands captain, and his nickname is a Chapter Master Smash Fucker.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So this guy,
All right, Murray,
like,
get ready to turn this into a reel.
yeah, no, there's going to be one of those things where it's like technical difficulties, but I'll just give you a quick synopsis. It was this captain
Make it
that
less than
had like
60 seconds.
less than 60 seconds. He was a captain that had a 2+ invuln that was re-rollable because that was what Cataphractii Terminator Armor did. He had a 2+ Feel No Pain, and now if he got injured, the Feel No Pain got worse. But then he also had an ability called It Will Not Die, which on a 5+ he regained wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
there used to be some really, really broken stuff in the game. Now, as part of that, there used to also be, if you were double the toughness, you just or if you were double the strength of the toughness of a unit, you just automatically died. Unless you had Eternal Warrior, which he did because he
Mm-hmm.
was a captain, but that's beside the point. So, like, literally, like, if you shot something, like, so what was the rail cannon profile?
A rail cannon back in the day, strength
No,
18.
no, no. Oh, yeah, for Votan. So, in theory, if this was, like, 7th edition, if you shot that at a, like, we'll just use the scale. If you shot it at anything weaker than, like, a Rhino or weaker, it just wouldn't get a save, and it would just automatically die if it hit and wounded.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless you had an invuln.
Mm-hmm.
Invulns, you got saves, but God, remember that whole thing where it's like, yes, we're going to basically make it so it ignores invulnerable saves, but it doesn't ignore demonic saves. Don't you love that system? Like demons had their own
Oh
save.
yeah, they had their own invulns that Grey
They had
Knights
their
couldn't
own
get around,
invuln.
even though they were meant to counter them.
Then they had to FAQ it that they could
Yeah.
because it was like, yes, you ignore invulnerable saves. And then it's like, well, they're not invulnerable saves, they're demonic saves. And then Games
Mm-hmm.
Workshop's like, oh no, what did we do?
Mm-hmm. All right, back to the video.
Back to the top video.
Murray, figure out how to turn that into a reel.
Yeah. You can just you can just talk about Chapter Master Smash Fucker. So getting back to the video. So what we've talked about, and I think this is kind of the wrap up, is that there has always been a big dichotomy between infantry and vehicles in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because right now, 10th edition is in a very vehicle heavy meta.
Yeah.
Because in general, like infantry just doesn't really do things to vehicles, and even things that like in theory should do damage to vehicles just potentially can just fall flat. Like eradicators have to have the ability of reroll all your hits, reroll all your wounds, and reroll all your damage to like be a credible threat to like anything tougher than a Rhino.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is like really unhealthy for the game. And this is kind of like this is a little precursor for the next video, because they also added, they like sustained hits and lethal hits were always in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Not always, but they were in 8th edition, they were in 9th edition.
They've been around for like almost 10 years, if not 10 years.
Yeah, I think they had it. It was very rare, but they had it in earlier editions as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Lightning Strikes. And that was the 7th edition name for it, but for sustained hits. But they had to add that into the game because if you were Death Guard, like Index Death Guard, like you could you just don't do damage to vehicles. You just didn't really have you didn't really have anything. I guess the Predators could, but like outside of that, I mean, not really. None of your melee was high strength. None of your guns were high strength. Like all the blight launchers weren't high strength. And like you look at an army like Emperor's Children, right? Spoiler alert, I just recently played against Emperor's Children, and I did not have a fun time. I got mortal wounded to death by the demon princes. And I also got slowly whittled down by the Coterie of the Conceited, with getting critical hits on 5s with sustained lethal with 1 CP. You can reroll all your hits. Like, and now that anything can wound anything, you start having this really weird problem where you have to start adding systems into the game in order for things to do damage to vehicles, right? Because the strength, like a bolter wounds everything, like every vehicle on 6s. And I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing in general. It's just that, okay, if you're an army that doesn't have anti-tank, right? Some armies really don't. Like World Eaters, like you had to like give the Exalted Ape out anti-vehicle 3+, which I think is fine. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Because it would be the same thing if we were to go back to 7th edition, from my understanding. They would be the anti-vehicle option.
Yeah, because chain fists were, and that's actually what they have, is they had the chain fist, but I don't know why they just say chain blades now. But like chain fists, that was what you used to pop vehicles. And that is fine. Like having like stuff like very specialized to do tasks have always been around, and they kind of got rid of that a little bit in 8th and 9th edition. Like there wasn't really a generalist weapon, and they're trying to get rid of that now. And I think that in general they're doing a pretty good job with it. I think Melta should be stronger. Don't get me wrong.
I think it should be 10 or 11.
Yeah, I think it should just be. I think it should be 10, and then if you're within Melta range, you get +2 strength.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
What was I going to get at? So one of the things they had to do in this edition was increase the strength of like other tanks, like main cannons. So like think of the Predator, right? Predator Destructor, or like the Castigator, right? That was never strength 8. They were always strength 7 because all their vehicles were strength 7, and then last cannons were strength 9 because they were designed to wound like vehicles on 3s. Now you have all those guns that were like strength 7, strength 6 before, are now like strength 9, strength 10. And so all these weapons on vehicles that were wounding things on like 5s or 3s before are now wounding on 2s. And remember how I said that Lance is becoming like way too prevalent? I'm not going to get into this because this is a spoiler alert. There's been a few this episode. But the moment you get above toughness 7 or strength 7, or no, I'm sorry, the moment you get above strength 6 and you have any ability like Oath of Moments or Lance or anything like that,
Grudge Token V2,
Grudge Token, whatever, you start wounding over almost half the units in the game on 2s.
Yep.
And that is super unhealthy, in my opinion.
Wounding Terminators on 2s that easily.
I mean, but like think about the Forge Fiend, right? Like that, like strength 10, like that was strength 7 last edition. Like it wasn't that strong. I mean, I know the Exocrines were.
Oh my gosh,
and that's
strength
also
14.
No, they were strength 8, but it's like that
used to be massive.
But that used to be massive. And that's one of the reasons that I don't really understand some of the weapon profile choices this edition, right? So you have all these weapons that before were like wounding stuff on like 3s, and now they wound stuff like basically wound all like infantry on 2s. And then if you have any buff to them, I mean, we just said it, you wound majority of the game on like 2s. And then when you have blanket shooting buffs like Oath of Moments, it just breaks the game. Like it makes toughness just like not matter. And also, there's a really good Goonhammer article on this They did a kind of a weird thing in the sense of like, okay, so essentially what they did was they looked at like what all the toughnesses in the game were, and then they like essentially added up the percentage of the game that was that toughness, but they did it by points, which is weird. Instead of like they did it by number of units, they did it by the like amount of points in the game are these units. If that or are this toughness, if that makes any sense. So it's like, in general, your elite infantry is more than like your transports, but your transports are higher toughness, right? But your elite infantry is more. So it's like probably percentage of points. There's actually like more point percentage of the game is like toughness 6 than
right,
than like toughness 9, which is funny enough. Like I think that's actually like the highest point percentage in the game is toughness like 6. I believe it's like it's like 40% or something like that of the game's total points. Now that's a weird way of doing it. I don't know if I really agree with that methodology, but I mean I think it's certainly interesting. But there's like nothing that's toughness 7, toughness 8, and that's really weird to me.
Hold on now. There is something that's now toughness 7.
Oh yes, but that is a topic for next time.
Which I think.
It's probably a good stopping point.
I think so. I think we've hinted at something to deal with marine toughness enough.
But I guess if we're gonna wrap it up, essentially, Games Workshop had a massive change from 7th to 8th and 9th, and then even a giant change from 9th to 10th. But the game still feels, and this all has to do with toughness, and the wounding of vehicles and how infantry and vehicles like functionally interact, right? And essentially, we are now back into the era of vehicles like are now dominating infantry because infantry doesn't really have a lot of responses to vehicles except for blanket buffs, because before you had war gear to deal with it, and now you don't have that option, so now you have to do something else. And sort of the problem with that is that when you start giving blanket damage buffs, you start overkilling everything else in the game. Just to do damage to one thing, you start killing everything else. It's like an invasive species. You go in and you outcompete everything there. Just in order to like get a foothold.
Editor, put a few invasive species on this.
Zebra mussels. That's a real problem in the Great Lakes. Lionfish, big problem in Hawaii, I believe.
No, Florida.
Also, another big problem in Florida is the Burmese python.
Yep. And while we're wasting time here,
what's your
go
favorite,
ahead and put them in
hold on, real quick.
Oh?
No. Put in the comments what your favorite invasive species is. But first, I want to ask Smug, what is your favorite invasive vegetative species?
Oh gosh.
Can you even name one?
Dandelions, technically, aren't they?
I don't know if they're invasive or if they're just pests.
Well, I might be misinformationed, but I'm pretty sure they're from Europe. They're not actually native to America. So the fact that they're in America and the way that they are is technically an invasive species.
All right, hold on. I'm reading this up.
Don't quote me on it, but
all right. You are technically right.
Okay.
They are invasive to North America. All right, so dandelions. That is your answer.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely not the only one I knew.
My answer is kudzu.
Oh my gosh! Oh,
you should know that. Hey, this might be a little.
I live in the Middle East Coast. Yeah. No, I deal with kudzu. You should know what
kudzu is.
I deal with kudzu. Well, the thing is, in my brain.
Dude, for anyone who doesn't know what kudzu is, that we've gotten so off the rails, but this is your horticulture lesson.
Yeah.
Next episode, we're going to talk about ATP synthase and Brownian in motion. Yeah, no, but kudzu, by the way, is one of the coolest. It's one of the coolest plants, legitimately, because it can grow up to a foot a night.
Yeah,
that is real. That is a real stat.
No, you can hear it grow.
You can hear it growing. Anyways, and on that note,
I think we'll call it there.
We'll call it there. Put your favorite invasive species in the comments and get ready for part 2.
Yeah, coming near you. Have a good one, everybody.